So this video is going to speak you through the custom forms. So when you come to the custom form page, it will initially look like this. It's split into default and my forms. The default forms are the forms that the system is automatically preloaded with when you first sign up to Mybridal. And then if you then go on to edit those forms or customise them, they will then be saved to my forms because they become your own. So if we want to go ahead and customise the booking form, we can do that by clicking over here and we can copy it and we can then edit from the copy. So if I click on copy here, it'll open up this window. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to name it as, let's go, Emma's booking form. And you can also put a description in as well if you wanted to. And then we're going to have a look at the actual items that are on the form. So at the minute you can see it's just the standard information, so name, phone number, email, notes, and wedding date. So there are a few fields that are mandatory. So you see the ones with the asterisk, so name, phone number, and email. Mybridal does require that information, so they have been made so they have to stay on the form essentially. But everything else you can remove. So wedding date, notes you could get rid of, and you can add anything else in that you want to, and kind of reformat it to look how you like. If we click on name, you can see that it's mandatory. It won't let you untoggle this because it has to stay on the form. However, you can decide whether you want it to be a required field for your bride. So if we go to validation down here, you can see it's a required field. That means when the bride goes to fill in the form, if they don't fill name in, it will flag up and it won't let them progress. So you can turn that off if you want to. In fact, name I think always is required, but the phone number, that's an example. You could toggle that one off. And email, same as well. So you could choose whether you want them to have to input that information or not. And that is the same for everything else. You could choose what your own kind of required fields are on your form. If you have to know like what that wedding venue is, you could do a box for wedding venue and then we could make it required as well. So that brings us back to the types of input that you can have on the form. So we have static inputs and then we have inputs. So static is things like your headings, subheadings, any text that you want to display. It's anything that the customer doesn't interact with, and the inputs are anything that the bride has to do. So it's if they have to like reply to a question, if they've got like a drop down box, if they're inputting an email address, it's any information that you're gathering from them. So there's all sorts of different things that you can add. I'm going to go ahead and add a static field just so you can see what it looks like. So we'll do a heading. So if I click on heading here, you can see it's coming up as text. So I'm gonna just say please fill in the following information. You can change the size, so I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller, so it's going to sit at the top of my form. You can then choose the weight, so you can choose how bold you want it to be, and you can choose the colour. So let's just go for a random colour. I'm going to go for like, let's go for like a bluish colour, one of the more Mybridal type colours, but you could put your custom hex number in as well if you wanted to match your formatting. I'm then going to move this up to the top of the page, so we'll move that to the top. And you can see you can also move it down if you wanted to as well. So I'm going to pop that right at the top. Okay, so we can see all the information over here. I'm going to go on notes and I'm going to rename that. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put, please tell us a bit about your special day. So you can change the font to say whatever you want. And I'm going to put a hint on as well. What shall I just say? I'll just say, I don't know, we want to know all about it. So you can customise it so it feels quite personal to the bride or the kind of event customer when they're filling things in. Now, what other options have we got? So a text input, single line text input, that's like your name. So it's when they're replying with text and it's just one line. Number input is the same, but they're expecting a number as the answer. Email address, phone number, they're self-explanatory. Use those fields because it'll then recognise whether it's a valid email or phone number. Currency, so anything that's expecting it to be monetary values. Text area, so this is like the notes box of text area, so it's a bigger area. So it means that they can just write a little bit more in there. URL, so anything that's expecting a URL. And let's go ahead and we'll add a checkbox. So there's a few different options. So we have a checkbox and a checkbox group. So if we open up a checkbox option, it'll just allow you to add one checkbox. So you might want to put something like, you could label that to say like, I agree to your booking T's and C's. for example, and then you could do a checkbox that way. Or if we then wanted to do a checkbox group, we could do this for something that requires them to choose like from multiple options. So we could do this one for like how did you hear about us? And then we could add a few different options. So I could go like Facebook, word of mouth, Google, just a few as examples. And you can then see that there's lots of different options. So if we go back, they would then be able to come on and they'd be able to select how they heard about you. So obviously you could add any options that you wanted in there. You can also add the other option as well. So if you wanted to, you could add other on there as well. Now, as you can see with the form, there are some elements that cover the full width of the page and there's some that are smaller. Now you can play around with these and you can make them sit however you want. So for example, this one doesn't necessarily need to take up the full width. So if I wanted to change that, I would come down here to layout. So currently it's using the default layout, but if I untick this and if I untick this down here, we can see we've got the container width. And that means you can choose whatever you want for that. So I could change it to like 5 and you can see that it just fits in nicely there. That means I could then put something else next to it as well. So it means that your form could be built up exactly how you want it to be. So if I did that, and then if we did something else on the other side, so if I do like, let's move further down and we'll do a select box. So you can do a select and a multi-select. So this is like a drop-down select box. So if I click on, let's go on multi-select, so you can see what it looks like. So it's when you choose from a drop-down option. Now the single select is just if you want them to be able to give one answer only. Multi-select, they can select multiple things. So if we do budget, for example, you might not want that to be a multi-select. You might want your budget to be a single select. So let's delete the multi-select. I'm going to scroll down and I'm just going to add a select option. I also want this to fit next to this nicely. So I'm going to change the size of it by unclicking the defaults and I'm going to change it to, we'll go to 5. You can see how it sits next to it on the form. So I'm going to change that from select. So I'm going to say, what is your budget? And then you can add options. So I'm going to say, let's go less than 1,000, add option, 1,000 to 2,000 or greater than 2,000. And this means then when they come to the drop down, they then would have to choose one of the options. They can't choose multiple. They would then choose like so. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of different settings. There's all sorts of different bits and bobs that you can add into the form and you can format it how you want. As you saw me do before, you can click delete to get rid of it. You can copy an element if you want to do something similar, but just change it. So I could pop that there and then I could just edit the text rather than having to create it again completely. And ultimately, you can add whatever you want to your form. Now, you'll also see at the top here, it says selected. So this means when we save it, this form will be the selected one that is used on the booking system. So if you're just creating it and you're not quite ready for it to go live, make sure that's set to off. So when you save it, it doesn't automatically get put on the online booking system. I'm going to put mine on. So we're going to put it there and we can then save. So this is telling me there's a duplicate. So I've asked the same question twice. So it's just flagging it up. So if I delete that, we can then go ahead and save. So we can see it's now come into the My Form section. It says Emma's booking form. It is selected, so it is used on the booking system. If I then come across to here and we go and have a look at my booking system, I'm just going to put a random appointment in. We'll go for that one. We'll move forward. And you can see this is the form that I've just created. So this is now being used live on my booking system. I hope that helps.